I need to send me a deck from last May. I think it was engaged at 1.0, it's maybe at 2.0, so maybe it was waited for that next year. Yeah, we're ready for 3.0 next time. So I'm looking at this board on business models, and I see that there's a lot to talk about this weekend around business models. But often what gets lost in the discussion is what it means to pay for news, what it means to disadvantaged communities who cannot afford to pay for news. How do they have access to credible journalism? Fortunately, if we haven't been thinking about that hard enough, Fran Wills has, and Fran's going to talk to us about some ideas of how we make quality journalism accessible to all communities.
First Ignite talk, so please be patient. All right, so I want to talk a bit about what I think is a conundrum for our industry. So we need new consumer revenue subscription models to pay for our journalists, but are we diminishing the equitable access to journalism and trusted news sources? And as Thomas Jefferson said, one of the big threats to democracy is actually having an uninformed, uneducated electorate, and not all information is the same. So misinformation, fake news, bold-faced lies are becoming more and more mainstream and are becoming overpowering credible news sources. In fact, 83% of individuals globally think that misinformation is a pretty large concern, and the internet and social media are kind of putting gas on that flame. And as Lou Pascal said, a free press is critical to us combating misinformation, but we have to have more access to that. So journalism could, credible journalism could be the solution to combating misinformation, and we can be more the purveyors of truth. But as you know, we're facing a lot of big headwinds in that 77% decline in advertising, there's 58% fewer employees in newsrooms, and 70 million Americans are now living in news deserts. And just like Andrew said, we went from town crier where everybody could access the information to various models along the way, and we actually got to a place where we had free distribution of information on the internet, but now that is starting to be curtailed by content being behind paywall. But the reality is only 20% of Americans subscribe to digital content, and we've got almost 80% of Americans that then are not getting access to that credible content. So how do we support them, and how do they figure out what is fact and what is fiction? So a few ideas just to contemplate. That's a long slide on the left. I didn't realize this slide was going to be this long. Okay, so let's give consumers more choices on how they can support news. We need to look at how we are executing paywalls, and maybe get some sponsorship to paywalls, and then of course there's donations. So, paywalls right now are, they used to be like 10 articles, now they're down to 0, and you pay an annual fee or you don't get anything. So maybe we should look at data passes or pay $1 for an article. Just giving consumers more ways that they can pay for access to your content. We can get sponsors of big brands or local businesses to, basically underwrite access to content for people that maybe can't afford it or are not inclined to subscribe. And then of course there's the rise of donations, and for-profit organizations need donations as much as nonprofit organizations, so we should take a different look about the donation model. And, we can also look at reimagining advertising. Advertising declined, so we got on the bandwagon of consumer revenue. Well, what if we can balance both of those and work on how we can increase advertising as a revenue stream? So $17 billion worth of programmatic advertising go to paid for advertising websites. Yet brands and advertising are blocking their ads on news content. It's a big thing that needs to be discussed industry-wide, because most consumers don't view local news as being detrimental to their view of a brand. I'm too behind, sorry. And we can also look at scalable ways to address the programmatic ad network, like local media. The Local News Consortium just developed NewsPass ID, which is a way to have scalable programmatic advertising for local news outlets. So, sorry I went over. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.